The Tibetan map of the way to Nirvana, explained in a way even a child can understand. What you are seeing is not mythology. It is not a belief system. This is something that even a small child can understand. This is about a Tibetan Buddhist map of the way to Nibbana. Yet after living for 70 years as a Sri Lankan Buddhist layperson, I only came to know about it from a map-related YouTube site called Mapster. Even though the creator of that channel is a non-Buddhist person, he explains this map with great appreciation and respect. When I saw that, I, who had lived my whole life as a Buddhist, felt deep sadness about my ignorance of not knowing about it before, as I personally have never seen this image in any Sri Lankan Buddhist temple. I will put the link to the Mapster site in the description. You can all look it up yourselves. Now look at this image. To me, this image is deeper than any Dharma book, deeper than any Buddhist sermon. Because this is the bhava chakra, the wheel that shows the journey of samsara, the wheel of rebirth. It is said that this was drawn in ancient times following the instructions of the great Venerable Maha Moggallana. Because Venerable Moggallana was an arahant with great psychic power, he was able to look back through thousands of past lives as needed. By repeatedly observing his past life and death process, he understood how the wheel of samsara operates and taught it to other monks, explaining how to disable it and stop the rebirth process. In other words, attaining Nirvana. Later, it is said that the Buddha instructed that this be made into a map painting and shown to new monks. That is why this map is still painted in Tibetan monasteries. Now let us look at this wheel. At the center is a dark hole emitting black smoke. That represents ignorance, avidya, meaning that this endless cycle of life and death is going on because you have no idea about this trap you have fallen into. Hence you believe this is the only lifetime you have, or else you believe that in this life everything is under your control. It is fine, good, comfortable, and a valuable thing to be indulged in and worthy of being wished for again and again. Nika, Sukha, Atta, Subha, Sara, Vatina, etc. This ignorance is the fundamental cause of samsara, which is why it is shown at the very center. Next, we see three animals chasing one another in a circle. A pig represents delusion, moha. It is the ego of misunderstanding or wrongful self-identification. A rooster represents craving or lust, raga. A snake represents hatred or aversion, dosa. They chase one another endlessly, holding each other's tails. These are the three unwholesome roots. Because ignorance gives rise to delusion, delusion gives rise to craving, and craving gives rise to its second nature, which is hatred, thus creating hopes and expectations of possessing the things you crave and wishes for avenging the ones you hate. These never-ending hopes, expectations, cravings, and wishes for avenging are the driving force of rebirth. Thus, the wheel of samsara continues. The next ring is divided into black and white halves. On the white side, beings move upward, from human to heavenly to Brahma realms. On the black side, beings fall downward into animal, ghost, and suffering realms. This shows that driven by greed, hatred, and delusion, beings fall into suffering. When these are reduced, and one lives wholesomely without excessive greed, hatred, and delusion, meaning generously, compassionately, and humbly, without ego, one rises to better rebirths. Next is the ring divided into 6 realms of existence. The God or heavenly realm is shown with radiant palaces, full of pleasure, but it is not permanent. The Asura realm is full of power, jealousy, and conflict, no peace. The animal realm has life, but no understanding. The ghost realm has craving, but no satisfaction. The hell realms have intense suffering, fire and ice, yet they are not eternal. Only the human realm contains suffering, happiness, and wisdom together, making it the only waking realm where liberation is possible. That is why Buddhas and Arahants arise in the human realm. The next outer ring shows Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, divided into 12 links. From ignorance to aging and death, this ring shows the chain of cause and effect. Please note, I am trying to explain this in the simplest possible words so a non-Buddhist child can understand, though some erudite, text-bound people called Padaparama, word and text-bound, but without practical understanding, may cringe. And represents ignorance, avijja, which I explained before. A potter-shaping clay represents mental formations or the deluded thinking process, sankhara. A monkey jumping from branch to branch represents deluded, impure consciousness, attachments or hatred affected, hence tainted, and dirty consciousness, vijnana. People in a boat represent name and form, namarupa, the dirty consciousness wanting and jumping into another mind and body in order to satisfy unfulfilled expectations and wishes. 6 windows represents the 6 sense bases, sala yatana. With that body come eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and a new mind. A couple embracing represents contact, sparsha, pleasure through the body. A man struck in the eye by an arrow represents feeling, vedana. A drunkard represents craving, tanha, attachment to pleasures. A man picking fruit represents clinging, upadana, wishing again and forming a habit. A pregnant woman represents becoming, bhava, again becoming a creature of habit. A woman giving birth represents birth, jati, gaining another birth as the habitual entity. A corpse represents aging and death, jara marana, to be born again as a new entity of habit. Example, if you lived like a tiger, you will be born back as a tiger in the jungle. If you lived like an angel on earth, you will be born as an angel in heaven. If you lived a life of relinquishment, you will never come back again and will stay in Nirvana. Is the 12-fold chain. Outside the wheel is a fearsome figure holding it. This is not a demon. It represents Yama, the Dharma Raja, the Lord of Dharma and righteousness, the king who presides over judgment and punishes sinners. Yama symbolizes the uncontrollability, Anichcha, and the impermanence, Anaththa, and the inevitability of death. No matter where you go, things do not occur according to your wishes, Anichcha, and no one escapes death. Outside the bhava chakra stands the Buddha, pointing to the moon. The moon symbolizes Nibbāna, which lies completely outside this wheel. This image is not meant to frighten people with demon faces, but to help them understand suffering, its causes, and the path to liberation. To escape suffering, one must understand this wheel and follow the path shown by the Buddha. Then one can attain Nibbāna, represented by the moon in this map. The Buddha also teaches how to exit the wheel. To escape samsara, one must understand the dharma, the mechanism of the wheel taught by the Buddha. Breaking at least a one link of the 12-fold chain is enough to disable the wheel. The easiest link to break is craving, tanha. That is why the Buddha taught that eliminating craving leads to Nibbana. I am not going into details here, as I already made a video explaining this to my son in English. Please watch this video called What is Samsara, What is Nirvana, Rebirth, and What are the Four Noble Truths, what the Buddha taught in short. The link is in description, and the first comment, in short, to disable the bhava chakra, one must understand the Four Noble Truths and practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Uncontrollability, Anichcha, must be understood deeply. Nothing in the world can be maintained according to one's wishes. Youth, beauty, health, none last forever. Thinking they will last is ignorance. Avidya, seeing uncontrollability, Anichcha, leads to understanding suffering, Dukkha, and seeing suffering leads to seeing the absence of essence, Anatta, in the sense of insubstantiality.
Yad Anichcham tam Dukkham, Yam Dukkham tad Anaththa.
Meaning, what is uncontrollable is unsatisfactory. What is unsatisfactory is not worthy. Anaththa, insubstantiality, is not anatma, soullessness. These are very similar sounding words, just like Anichcha, uncontrollability, and Anitya, impermanence, and are often misunderstood as the Buddha saying there is no soul. What the Buddha taught is cause and effect, an evolving and devolving, progressing and regressing of dirty consciousness, vijnana, which keeps regenerating itself in new physical bodies as long as ignorance, avidya, remains. If progressively evolves rebirth in better places like heaven, and if consciousness is dirty with lust and hatred, then rebirth is bad places like ghost or hellish realms. Once vijnana is purified into panya, pure consciousness, by relinquishing attachments, there will be no wishing for new physical bodies forever, and no continuity of ego-tainted self. Being pure consciousness, you are out of the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, if there were no continuity of self at all, the Buddha would not have cultivated perfections over countless eons. Also, in Jataka stories, the Buddha said countless times that King Kusa was him, Maha Oshadha Pandita was him, and Seri Vanija was him. True Dhamma sermons are only those that show the path to destroy becoming bhava, not those that merely promise heavenly rebirths. If you want to go to heaven, there are many other religions to choose from. Buddhism is not about going to heaven. It is the only religion that teaches how to achieve liberation by self-help, without relying on any other party or a god, and it is about realizing Nibbana here and now. If a Buddhist priest preaches about how to go to heaven, then how can he be a Buddhist? I do not understand. They are doing this for personal gain, getting people to donate so they can go to heaven and get plenty in return for the donation. That is a transaction, not liberation. How to distinguish between good Buddhist priests and corrupt Buddhist priests. First, listen to his sermon attentively. If he talks about the good merits of donations, leave him. If the priest starts the sermon talking about Nirvana and ends it by showing the path to it, then follow him. And even if he never expects or asks for donations, donate to him because he is genuine. Human birth is extremely rare and precious. If we waste it by going after bad priests and end up going to heaven and coming back here again someday, who knows what situation will exist at that time, or whether conditions to go back to heaven will even arise again. This world is not a place to linger in comfort. It is dangerous. So are heavens, because they are also not outside this wheel of samsara. Therefore, seek the way out. Choose good spiritual friends. Choose sermons that point to liberation. May all beings be freed from the suffering of samsara. May all attain Nibbana. May everyone be able to walk the path that leads to it.